Welcome to the Eating Cast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Vincent. Today we have two lovely guests, King Maire.
Hey.
And Laki Siap from Chicago Asian Network.
Yes. Laki here from Chicago Asian Network.
All right. Welcome.
So Vince.
Yes.
What do we got to eat today?
You stopped by Shawarma Inn, right?
Yes, I did.
Chicago's corner for Middle Eastern food?
Middle Eastern
food.
Yes. The best in my opinion.
You got chicken chicken plates, right?
Yep. Chicken corner plates all around.
All right.
With the good old classic lentil soup.
Ooh.
Wow.
I haven't eaten all day.
It's like opening a present.
Oh my God.
Exactly. It's huge.
Right.
Yup. Very good, very good.
All right. Cheers, everyone.
First bite of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, first meal of the day for me too. Okay, so what are we gonna? How do I do this?
All right. Well, let's just dive right into it.
Okay.
So we'll just call you Christine. Is that fine?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Christine, King Maire.
I was thinking like how should we say this?
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah, I listen to any of it, so whatever you feel comfortable with.
So I guess we could start with tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you're all about.
So I am a local artist. I'm from the northwest side of Chicago, born and raised.
Okay.
Which part of the northwest side?
So Addison and Cicero.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard because
okay.
Everyone always has like a area or a neighborhood to claim, but I don't know, Addison and Cicero doesn't really fit into Portage Park, Belmont Cragen, Old Irving Park.
Mm-hmm.
So I just claim streets. But yeah, I am a singer, DJ, creative director. I model, kind of do a little bit of everything creative. So yeah, anything that falls under that, anything that's really in the realm of like what I think up, I try and just make happen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I am also the founder of Philippine X, and this is what Asian looks like, and my annual benefit sneaker drive for the kids.
What is for the kids is for?
So basically
you said sneakers drive.
Yes,
yeah,
it's a sneaker drive. It's also, I do like a silent auction. I get a lot of my friends involved. I feel like artists don't necessarily always know how to give back to the community, so I try and give them a platform to either donate their services, their art, try to get like local businesses involved to give gift cards, etc., and then have all that money be donated to a different nonprofit of choice, local nonprofit that helps the youth through art or music.
Nice.
You said you're a creative director of and founder of Philippine X.
Yes. Well, creative director for in general.
Okay.
But yes, founder of Philippine X.
So I want to know more about that. What is Philippine X?
So Philippine X basically started last year. It was just an idea I had in regards to just putting more focus on Filipino people, and obviously X to be inclusive to all people, so it doesn't have to have the feminine or masculine ending.
Yeah.
But really just a focus for Filipino creatives.
Nice.
In my lifetime, majority of the people that are the most talented, and just maybe it's because I'm also Asian, is Asian people. So
There you
go.
go.
That part.
That's a plug-in right there.
But I think it's just it's we don't live currently in a world where we're thought of first or ever or at all. So I think it's it was my obligation. It just felt like an obligation to me to, if I was going to have a platform, to do the right thing, to make sure that other people that are not only my friends, but all people, especially in the Midwest, like we were talking about earlier, like each coast already has so much representation and so much opportunity, and even though there's a lack of, they still have what we don't in the Midwest. So like how we were saying, it's really just gonna take a few steps and like, you know, start with people to catch on, and then hopefully that just inspires more and more people to want to build, and then we just have a bigger community and a bigger network. So Philippine X started as just an event. I just wanted to celebrate Filipino people. So this is what Asian looks like, and Philippine X kind of like go hand in hand. And it started, this is what Asian looks like started a year before, and it started as a photo shoot. So me kind of just like getting a group of my Asian friends together. So something that can be understood by everyone. So the power of having people stand together in solidarity through a photo was really my aim. And then it turned into This Is What Asian Looks Like has still been a photo shoot campaign, and I threw a party as well during Asian Pacific American Heritage Month.
Yeah, she got
Last,
it.
Nice.
last year.
Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's so many.
There's a lot,
yeah.
So I want us to like try and figure out. I don't know. I just feel like it gets confusing too, because each year I feel like it changes, or there's additional hashtags.
There's always an addition.
Yeah, it is.
It just keeps growing.
It
But that's
does,
a great.
which
That's
is
actually a
good
great thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and people are claiming, you know, who they are and what they are. You know, we're islanders, so we should be addressed as such.
Do you think that helps or breaks the community? Because like when we try to add more like identifiers, I guess more cat labels, or like, do you know what I mean? Because like I feel like it's good that we're exposing them and like we're getting more exposure, but I feel like sometimes people be like, oh, I only claim this, so the rest can just go screw off.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that. I think it does get more confusing because, you know, like I said, the outside people don't even understand the difference between Asian countries, right?
Yeah.
To them, like, we all look the same, but so then between us, it also gets confusing, because I'm like, damn, I didn't use that hashtag last year, you know, when I tried to put this campaign out, but exactly. So I think there should be an overall one to just kind of like explain that it's Asian History Month in general for all Asian people who say that they're Asian. And then for October,
Filipino American History Month. Yeah.
is also.
I need to learn about that because I'm a quarter Filipino now.
There you go. Now you know.
know.
But also, no one knows that, right?
Yeah.
I'd say the Filipino community knows it. That's the one time I've been doing community work for so long, so my network has always been within the community, and that's like the one time where Filipinos always have a party, right? They always find a reason to have a party, right? June for Philippine Independence Day celebration, May for Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, February for the Lunar New Year, and then October for Filipino American History Month.
Yeah.
And in fact, back during the Obama administration, even the Obama administration would celebrate Filipino American History Month by getting Filipino leaders from around the nation to come to the White House and celebrate it with the White House. That was through the White House initiative through Asian American Pacific Islanders. But we don't need to talk about this current administration.
Right.
We'll see that for
clearly,
another.
because clearly that's not happening in the White House.
There is no
No,
administration.
I'll be. So there was actually they tried to. I got to go, but it was just sad. Yeah.
So
It's just different with each person.
Yeah.
the beauty, I mean, that's beautiful. I think a lot of what I do in terms of me being first generation Filipino American is that there's a lot of disconnect in terms of how I understand being Filipino and how I understand being American. I think like all the way up until my career now, I've realized that, you know, I've just been in search of, you know, so I really haven't had a Filipino community, you know, to what I understand. So I think that's why for me it's like when I do for the community, it's because this is the version of what I needed when I was younger. I didn't have an art or music community of Asian people, you know, so I think it's beautiful that like my friend, I have, you know, friends in AFIRE who are very much so in the
Shout out to AFIRE. For those who
Yes.
don't know, AFIRE, that's the Alliance of Filipino Immigrant Rights and Empowerment.
Oh, that's dope.
Michael Gujar, Mark Calaguas, and their former founder and executive director, Tito Jerry Clarito. He's one of those community OGs who's always just
Shout
been
out.
involved.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but going back to AFIRE,
Yeah,
just to
but-
give our people...
So there are existing communities, right? But that doesn't necessarily speak to me, you know. So it's like I have done a lot. Like I've gone to Springfield and you know, fought with them for our rights, and you know, but it's not necessarily like what moves me, you know. So I want to try and change that through the arts and through music,
Right.
and so yeah, I think that's kind of my angle in terms of how I would want to build my Filipino community. And I mean, the beautiful part is that we can, you know, somehow tie it all together and, you know, have that be strength in numbers. But
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, I think that's really just what it was. I've the more I do for the community, the more it does back for me. The more I find out what being Filipino means to me. I think I resented being Filipino for a really long time just because I didn't necessarily understand it, you know, and I was like, I'm not like them. I'm not like
Like, do you speak Tagalog? What does it mean?
I
like?
understand Tagalog fluently. I can put sentences together. I can respond. You know, it takes me a little bit. I definitely can. If it was full conversation, I can understand. Which my brothers can't and don't know any. You know, they just know bad words and numbers. But,
The only important part.
it was more just like I just didn't. It was the same thing, more of the connection. And I think the beautiful part of what I've been able to do is that I've just always been for everybody. You know, growing up on the north side, there's every kind of culture, right? So, you know, we've had the privilege of being able to, you know, learn from different cultures. We're eating Middle Eastern food, you know, and I think it's just that. And, you know, the older I get, the more I come across how different sides of the city didn't have the same privileges as we did, and you know, now I'm able to connect to different communities and understand different communities, and you know, try and segue to where they can understand mine, where it's a welcoming gesture of, you know, being like, hey, you know, like my culture is really dope too, you know, like you like who I am, like this is who I am, this is also part of who I am. So, you know, having like other Black and brown communities come to a Philippine X party and enjoy at the same extent as, you know, my Filipino people or, you know, my Asian people, like that's been the biggest reward for me.
Yeah, it's all about building each other up too. I feel
Exactly.
like in the past, Lucky, we were and Chris, we were all just talking. Like the traditional heads, they were very trying to like keep to themselves, right? And
They're
then
really segregated.
very segregated, and
And that's
then
why there's like communities or pockets of communities all around Chicago and like any
Absolutely.
neighboring suburbs,
yeah,
and they all just kept to themselves just because
Yeah.
of that whole fear of like kind of wanting to connect, right? Like obviously we are right now, right, as the younger generation, but the older generation, you know, through like just turmoil and just kind of war-torn areas, right, all throughout Southeast Asia and like Asia in general, when they came here from their sponsorships, they just stuck with their own people because they were like, I know these guys are good,
Right.
and I know these guys are bad because
Right.
they're the ones that instigated certain conflicts, but that's not how the world really works, right? Because
Yeah.
each individual person
It's different.
is different
Yeah.
compared to like what one nation did to another one, right?
yeah. That's why I give like such huge respects to like artists like you trying to do that, right? Unity, power numbers, kind of thing. And then just like platforms like Chicago Asian Network, right? Just kind of bridging people, bridging communities. And then, well, question for you is like, what did you see in the past, present, and what do you hope to see in the future in terms of the Asian communities?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Really good question.
Dang, you just blew my brain.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a three-part question.
Three-part
so,
question.
Well, you take it in a conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Let's
Just
stick,
curi- just
let, why
curious.
don't we start off with the past first of
Yeah.
like, because you were saying how you wanted you were creating this space for somebody who like like for somebody like you who you wish you had this for you when you were growing up,
Yes.
what was it like growing up? Did you always know you wanted to be an artist and a musician?
Yes. I think whatever you're good at when you're a child ends up being your true passion of what you really want to do when you're an adult. And sometimes it changes, right? But I've always been like different. I've always been, being different was what made me tick. I was like, oh, you like that? Let me like this. I just wanted to find so much uniqueness that I was always just going to be myself. And I have two older brothers. I come from a musical family as well, so I have two older brothers that are also DJs. My
That's
mom.
awesome.
Yeah, I always forget this part because it's normal to me, but it's not a normal situation. Like to have an entire musical family. Like my mom came to America. She's a singer, so she came to America in a traveling band, and she got to tour,
Nice.
the world and the States, and that's really where we get it from. My mom raised 3 DJs, and I always wanted to be just like my mom and sing, and it's all kind of full circle now. I think growing up, when I said I didn't have, we didn't, right? Like there was no one that looked like me on TV. There was no one like me in, Jocelyn Enriquez was probably the only one, right? She was probably the only one who, but it wasn't like there. No one was like screaming that she was Filipino. Like people who were Filipino knew she was Filipino, but to everyone else, they just knew she was Asian. But one of my best friends just did a piece, and I'm so honored to even just be considered to be in the same sentence with Jocelyn Enriquez, but on women in pop culture and like learning about how much she struggled. We're now 20 years later, and we're still kind of in the same boat. There's still no full Asian woman who is in pop culture, and there's so many that are in pop culture that are half part and are not saying that they are,
or even just there's so many who are just behind the scenes.
Right.
Like I know you were recently DJing Complex Con, and I happen to know that the producer of Complex Con, buddy of mine, Miles Canares, is actually Filipino.
Yeah. That
Right?
blew my mind too. I was like, what?
Yeah,
That's
but
awesome.
like
Say that,
that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, it's only now that you're seeing. It's not where we'd like it to be, but you're seeing that there's steps moving
Right.
towards it,
Yeah.
and especially after Crazy Rich Asians.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that was the first time, at least for Chicago Asian Network, we've been hustling and grinding in the Asian community, talking to like corporations, advertisers, because they've always been doing advertising and outreach. They're doing a lot of Latino outreach and African American outreach, but when we talk to them about, hey, why don't you do Asian American outreach? At first they're like, nah, we don't really see like the
benefit
need
from
for
it,
it, the
yeah.
benefit for it.
Yeah.
And then Crazy Rich Asians happen, right? And then they realize, wow, we've been ignoring this community for so long, for so many years, and they happen to now be the fastest growing minority
Yeah.
with the highest household income
Yeah.
Wow.
and a high educational level.
Yeah.
Right. So it now
Say it again. I'm sorry. Say it again.
they're the fastest growing minority
Yes.
with the highest household income
Yes.
and a high educational level.
Yes.
Let's
you
go.
go Asian people.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
right?
Go.
Let's go.
So I think all the more we should have more Asian American leaders in different industries, right?
Absolutely.
I agree.
Not just media and
I agree.
entertainment and
For
the
sure.
arts, right?
Yeah.
But more Asians in politics and government,
Yes.
right? More Asian Americans in corporate America.
Yep.
Like this one statistic blew my mind, like how in terms of law school applicants, around 20% of around 20% of law students are Asian American, yet only 1% make partner at a law firm
Wow.
that are Asian American. So just stuff like that where you see that there is that imbalance. But I also feel that's because within our culture, like our parents are, sometimes also teach us, don't speak up, just work
Yeah.
hard, get
Don't
the
dis-
Connecticut,
don't disrespect the elders.
and don't disrespect
That's
others, or just
crazy.
don't,
Yeah.
don't rock the boat, right?
Right.
And that's why we've always been that, that model minority where we just keep quiet, keep our head down, work hard. But then look where it's yes, we have a lot of us end up becoming successful in our own way, but we don't
Yeah.
end up being leaders.
The big picture.
But
Right.
you know, that's also why I hate that term, like model minority.
Absolutely.
Because in reality, right, in retrospect to that, it's like there's nothing really like we're good at so and so things, right? We do have like the highest like family income growth, but at the same time, it's not like we're really all that perfect. Like the media and like other people like tends to put us as, right? We have a lot of flaws, like within our own communities and within our own like cultures,
Yeah.
right? Like there's good and there's also bad.
Absolutely.
Just like in every other like subsect of different cultures across the board, So to have that kind of like label on us is like putting us on a pedestal and kind of like grooming us to be like a dog, in my opinion. That's how I feel about that.
I look at it like we're non-existent.
Yeah.
Like society looks at us like, oh, they're not threatening, they're a meek people, they don't talk back, so that's why we don't have to worry about them. My thing is like I always just was never raised like that. It was like, like if something is wrong, then say something, speak up, like and maybe it's beneficial that I had two older brothers as well who were never gonna let their little sister get walked over, you know. So I think
A lot of fights happen in school, huh?
Throw hands.
you know what? I've never fought.
Really? You've never
No.
been in a fight ever?
I've broken up fights and like I was always that person and like have gotten hit a few times, but never on purpose. That was just because I was in the middle of it. But I think it was more or less I wanted to make sure that I could be the voice for people that were scared to speak. And I'm sure you can attest for the same thing, where it's just like, that's why I was like, yeah, if I get this if I have a platform, then everybody's gonna have this platform. Like I'm always going to have to fight, and I get it. My whole life, I've always just had to fight for being a tomboy, for having my hair look different, for speaking different, for and the deeper I get into my career, the more I've realized, like me just breathing is going to offend somebody. So I can't make everyone happy, and I'm going to drive myself crazy trying to. But, as long as I know that I'm trying to do the better thing and the right thing, that's all I really need.
Right.
So, I think Asian people deserve to be seen. I had this conversation with my boyfriend this morning where, trying to like think of the next Philippine X for October, and last year it was over 4 hours, over 700 people came.
Nice.
17 different visual artists and photographers were showcased. It was an all Filipino DJ lineup. There was a Filipino food truck, Tandwai, Filipino rum sponsored the event. There was four or five different Filipino vendors, owned businesses. So when talking about this one, it was hard to try and think of it to be different. And he was like, well, why don't you, why don't you not do a party and have it be, like a social campaign, or, try and do something different and have it have, a different kind of impact. And, initially I was like, yes, I would love it to have a different kind of impact, but I cannot take away a party. Like I refuse to take away the ones we get one celebration a year, and if this is the one that I throw and people are looking forward to it, I'm not gonna not give it to them, But I was like, but I want the light. I want it to be lit. I want them to see our faces. I want them to know that we all don't look the same, that we're all different shades of brown, that we're all dressed different, and etc. And I think it's that, right? Like they try and mask us, right? To like be like the model citizen, or like the non-threatening group of people, whereas it's like, people are people. Like, there's some threatening Asian people.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. There's Asian gangs, there's all of it. I think it's just, in society standards, it's like, I'm just tired. I'm tired of not being recognized. I'm tired of people who do get the platform and, have a Lola are not celebrating their Lola. You know what I'm saying? Like, you should be so proud to be half Asian, quarter Asian, 10% Asian, whatever it is, like
25% Filipino.
25% Filipino. Shout out 23andMe.
Hey, yeah.
But there's actually like a funny thing about that though. It's like kind of going back a little bit, right, to like when Crazy Rich Asians like first came out, right, and kind of like seeing that this whole disconnect, right, and just kind of like us being like kind of behind the scenes as well as kind of like getting more traction on like the big screen, right, in like actual media. It's like Vince actually brought this up like sometime last week about Crazy Rich Asians.
The
screenwriters.
Yeah, so the Malaysian screenwriter paying 100,000, and then the white guy 800,000.
Yeah,
that's
he quit, right? Didn't he quit?
No, she quit.
Oh, she quit. The girl,
Yeah.
amazing. I love her even more.
Yeah,
but then it started getting like in major news. It started like being spread around.
Yeah.
Some people were like, "Oh, that's just how Hollywood is." I'm like, no, like, sure, experience, like you get paid more for experience, but that is a huge disparity.
Yeah.
Like gap is huge, just 8 times.
How can you justify that, right? They're both screenwriters, right? They both probably like roughly, I don't know how old they were or how long they've been doing it, but I'm gonna assume pretty close. Okay.
Yeah.
And if they are pretty close, it's like, dude, that's like $700,000 difference. No.
There's no
justification for that.
I mean, good for her.
Unless they both either negotiated their salaries or not, right? But that's still very, that's still
That's
very big
skew, right?
But
there.
it's a good thing that she spoke up though.
But
Right.
she
Because
did.
then now we know that shit happens, especially in that realm. Well, we had an idea, but seeing it, yes, take care of it.
So I also find myself to be the only woman in the room a lot of the time. There's there's a lot of reasons why I call myself king, but I've just always really felt comfortable around men and that I can always in hold my own. But that's also just to stay on topic, women still in our country don't get paid the same amount as men. So that's also part of what I want to do in my lifetime, just so that my my future ancestry is just able to, so these little girls can work hard and be chosen for their skill set and be paid equally. So yeah, good for her. She's
for sure.
700,000.
That's a lot.
That's $700,000 pay, yeah.
My God.
That's a big one.
So with that being said, with your recognition now, your influence, your power, so to speak, and this platform that you created for yourself, what do you hope to achieve? You briefly said for the future, right?
Yeah.
For your kids or any other girls.
When I think about, I don't know, I think about, the 35-year-old me, the 40-year-old me, in my 50s and so forth. And honestly, in my lifetime, for me to feel like I've succeeded, I want a Grammy and a Nobel Peace Prize. Whenever that happens along the way. And of course, to be a mom, to be able to experience motherhood and to just continuously put out art. And I don't know, I think my calling is to do music for sure. I think I've never doubted that, but I think it's also to be able to use music to heal and to help people. So when I say having a platform and that's, I think people understand the concept of me being an artist and a DJ and a singer, but no one sees the back end of all the production that I do to put these events on. I don't even say that I do the production, it just, the event happens and people enjoy it, but no one sees the organization or me hand dyeing my merch so that it's more special. It's I pretty much have a hand on everything that I do just because I'm that kind of artist. But yeah, it's hard to understand creative director is just a very vague title of but it's the only thing that kind of fits the umbrella of what I do in general. It's like, yes, I model, but I'm also on the back end of styling other artists and doing their makeup and their hair and, you know, giving them the full direction and telling the videographer and the photographer, you know, what angles I want and, you know, at what shutter speed I want it to look like, and giving them references and mood boards and organizing the schedule. And, you know, so it's like how a full agency would run. You know, I feel like I play a lot of those hats, so it's really hard to. And then, you know, I don't say that often because it's, you know, it's not what people think of me first. So it's easy for me to be like, yeah, I do music. You know, like, okay.
It's so generalized.
Have you listened to music? You know, like, but that's what I want people to do. And for me to, like, have to, like, force feed all of it, then it gets overwhelming and then people just don't really know how to receive me. So, you know, I think overall, I just want to live a life that makes me happy, but to use all of my skills to be able to help. So however I can help. I'm very empathetic, and sometimes it's my, you know, softest part of me, but, you know, so sometimes it works. Majority of the time it works in my favor because I just feel for people always. But yeah, I just want to look back when I'm a Lola, you know, and be like, I did that. I did that. I opened the doors for everyone to be able to do this easier. You know, I made sure that every day I was alive, I could do something for others. Even if it was like doing for myself first, it's because I'm able to do for others after.
Okay. So it's kind of like, it's in a sense showing the world that, you know, you did something, like you achieved pretty much like your goals and aspirations. But it's also like, for an instance, like you were saying, like how, like as the Lola, right? It's
which is grandmother.
Yeah,
for those
grandmother. For those who are unaware, you want to be able to have kind of like that middle ground where it's kind of like, hey, like to, like, you know, whether it's your your grandchildren or your children, right? That's kind of coming up, and even just like the individuals who are like lost, right? During that time, it's like, hey, I've done it. This is kind of how I did it, and they can see that it's achievable, right? Because you did do it. You know, it's gonna give them that extra motivation to kind of like go out there, achieve something that everyone says that they're crazy, they shouldn't do it, right? Kind of like, for instance, like us, right, with this podcast. You know, it's like everyone's saying like, you're not gonna make it. You know, you got Joe Rogan out there making like so many like moves. It's like you're just gonna be like in his shadow the whole time. It's like, but that's the benefit of it, right? It's the fact that we're passionate about something where we want to spread awareness, right? For instance, like we want to bring a bigger lens, right, to Chicago or to the Midwest, right? And so the world around us, right, can see like, oh, hey, there's something here in Chicago, not just the East Coast or the West Coast of Canada and like, you know, towards the South. There's something here, you know, and when we bring that bigger lens, right, more people will then gravitate towards us, you know. And I like to use the analogy a lot just because I'm like a history geek and whatnot. So Chicago, back in the day, right, was a central hub for all shipments because all the train tracks came into here.
Yeah, this was the central city.
This was the central city where distribution from the east, west, north, south.
This is where everything happened. Yeah,
exactly. So because everything came here back in the day by train, they had to go on the next tracks, right, to then go continue on to wherever they gotta go, right? That was in the past, and now, kind of like bringing this new lens or this new kind of light to Chicago, we want to bring more people here, right? Whether they're creatives as like cinematographers, videographers, music producers, painters, dancers, and the like, and as well as just people that are in like other professions as lawyers, doctors, you know, accountants, just entrepreneurs, right? So that everyone's able to kind of come back here and be like, hang on, I don't got to go to the East Coast to find a director that I want.
There's a
or a
beacon in
dancer.
Chicago.
Exactly. Yeah. Bringing up a beacon in Chicago is kind of like where we're trying to head.
Well, to add to that too, when we do a lot of, for example, Asian American brand activation, advertising, and every time we talk to our clients, they're always focused on New York or LA, right? Or Seattle, right? These are or San Fran. Like these are they call them the tier 1 cities where there's high populations of Asian Americans. Chicago does have a large Asian American population, but like we mentioned, it is fragmented, it is segregated, but there are tons of Asian American creatives out here, right? Like DJ Wise also, right? You have like DJ Flipside from the Jump Smokers, B96, but he's worked with Pitbull, Enrique Iglesias, Snoop Dogg, right? There's a lot of creatives out here, but sometimes the focus has, I agree, the focus has always just been East or West Coast. Yeah. And I admire you for doing this, because I think it's time to put Chicago back on the map, because there are so many creatives here, but they just don't have the platform, which is great that there's like the Eating Cast and Chicago Asian Network that's trying to build that platform to showcase and highlight these different Asian Americans, whether they be artists, creatives, politicians, corporate people. It's first taking that step to actually highlight us.
Like I said before too, it's like micro's fast, right? We're putting all this work behind the scenes, out there or not, but then macro, right? Big picture is slow. So as long as you have patience and you have people putting in work, and you have these people that are willing to build each other up instead of cutting each other down, then it's gonna show big picture. It's gonna be like, this is what we're all about. You know,
definitely.
So
that's one thing the community needs to stop doing is that sometimes, especially I've worked with the older generation, is there's just a lot of shit talking in our community.
Oh my God.
And especially in the Filipino community, I'll tell you this. There's this concept called crab mentality. Are you familiar with crab mentality? Okay, so imagine. Do you want to explain it?
No.
She's just like acting out a crab. Okay, so
Get out the bucket.
crab mentality. Imagine a bunch of crabs in a bucket, right? They're newly caught crabs. They're trying to escape the bucket. So these crabs are climbing on top one another, and now about to like get to the top to escape the bucket. But just as one crab is about to escape the bucket, the other crab brings that crab down. Right? So essentially, no crab gets to actually exit the bucket, because all they're doing is trying to one-up each other, or try to get... if one person tries to succeed, they end up either getting envious or jealous, where they end up trash-talking them or trying to see what they can do to bring them down instead of lift them up.
And look what happens. They all get thrown in the hot pot.
Yeah.
Right?
And they taste really good with garlic.
Oh my God.
No, but if you dig deeper though, like Filipinos are like, man, crab mentality, this, but it also goes back to when you say history, our history actually of colonialism, right? The Philippines was a Spanish colony, right? Back in the 1500s. And what Spain did was, being the Philippines being a bunch of different islands, what Spain did so that the Philippines would not revolt is they actually instilled it in the Filipinos to say, oh, you're better than them, right? What they would do is every time they would conquer these islands, they would always say like, oh, you're better than you people in this island, you're better than them, right? You're better than them. So essentially, they were making us fight against one another so we couldn't join forces and revolt against the Spaniards.
That's so tricky, but such a smart move by them.
Yeah, it is, but if you think about it now, it's now like a lot of Filipino Americans and historians are saying that because of that has, passed down from generation to generation, and it's been ingrained in our culture. Right? It's one of the negative things in our culture that I think our generation is trying to reverse. Because it's automatically like you'll have some titos or titas, like uncles and aunties, are just like, oh, you're Cebuano and we're Tagalog, we're better than you, you know. And I'm just like, yo, why the hostility? We just met, and you're already starting to think you're superior to them. So even not just within the entire Asian community, but even within a subgroup of the Asian community, within the Filipino community itself, there's that regionalism, right? There's
this year, there's so many creative people, so many creative Asians in Chicago, right? But when I started This Is What Asian Looks Like, I started in LA. So clearly there's more Asian people on the West Coast, right? And the East Coast. So there was more diversity in regards to skin tones. This year, every year, I'm always trying to find, at least one Korean person, at least one Japanese person. To find Japanese people in Chicago also is just not, it's a task.
It's hard.
That's a task.
It's easy for us. Just reach out to Chicago Asian Network.
Okay,
We
I
got
got you. I mean, right, but see, it's beautiful because now our networks are expanding, right? So I'm very grateful for what, all of you do because, I didn't know, so it was me trying to find within my own network the people that I think were fitting for what I wanted to do, right? So it's more important to me to find someone that represents each Asian country, as many as I could. And it was the first time that we did it indoor, so it wasn't natural sunlight, so there was a flash. And coincidentally, we are all about the same skin tones, even in this room, in the same
range.
Yeah. So I got backlash for it because they said that I didn't find
the diversity.
The diversity, and for me, it was like I couldn't. Also that's why I had to also say like I can't make everyone happy.
No.
Hopefully, by me doing this photo shoot, it inspires you to do a photo shoot that you think fits what you think Asian people look like. Because for me, it's just like I wanted to just find my Asian friends that are doing for their communities and leading their communities and give them a platform and who aren't models who but would love to be in a photo shoot so that's kind of where I was coming from. But just to go back to what you were saying, it's like there's colorism, there's so deep. It's so deep when it comes down to it. And I think especially with Filipinos talking shit, I think it's, we can curse, right?
Yeah, and
okay.
filtered.
No filter.
I think it's, and like, there's elders that are definitely racist. You know what I mean? Like fully racist. And
I agree.
I think we are able to live in a time where we have the internet, right? We have, there wasn't this many interracial couples or babies, at their time. It's just, we are just living in a different time. Also, like, going through, and maybe that's just a reach, but like going through 9/11, like being a child or like a preteen during 9/11 and understanding how the country had to help each other go through, because we all went through it. When I remember when Trump became elected, it was like you could hear a pin drop. It was like everywhere was just so, didn't know how to understand or take it. It was so quiet, because we all felt the same way. And so I think that's it. Like, we just have more knowledge, we're just a more educated group of people, and that's why we want to try and do things together so that we can build together and change things. And we're trying to change the cycle. We really are trying to change the cycle. Like, I've dating, my boyfriend is Mexican and El Salvadorian, and so we have a lot of, and there's a lot of similarities within the cultures, right? But we explain a lot to each other in regards to our backgrounds. And I've understood that when I was younger, my mom would hit me and she would tell me to stop crying, but I was crying because she was hitting me, so it's like you weren't allowed to
stop crying.
Yeah,
stop crying.
Exactly.
I'll give you something to cry about.
Right, but it was
you
like, I had to hold in my cry for her to stop hitting me. And it was like, it's beautiful because like learning about how he grew up, and his parents are much younger than mine, and they talk they talk about how they feel. They sit at the table and talk about how they feel. Like, I don't think I've ever sat down with my mom. I mean, maybe in my older years now, like being able to talk to my mom about things, you know, but it was like, why are you crying? It's just a game. Like, it's just a sport. And I'm like, this sport means everything to me, you know? Like, where it's just like, I had to contain my feelings so much when I was younger that now when I'm older, I'm like, I will never hold in how I feel. I'm going to let, you know, especially the people closest to me know how I feel, because they deserve it. I deserve it. We all need to figure out, you know, and I think more people are going to therapy as well.
Yeah, they are.
You know, and understanding that it's a benefit and it's a privilege and everyone should have it. It should be free. But, you know, I think it's just breaking the cycle. You know, it's starting with us, right? We're trying to do something different. We're saying we're doing what everyone says we can't do and won't be successful at. And, you know, the more we do, the more we find other people who are doing the same thing, who want the same thing. And, you know, I think it's amazing. You know, until, like I said, like there's so many. And there's so many men, and, you know, I'm so grateful for the men that are allies that want to do for everyone, you know, including women, and are thinking of women first as well and giving them job opportunities and just, you know, just keeping them in thought.
Being advocates for them, really.
Because it's, you know, and I will, you know, be the representative for the women. Like, we always have to work twice as hard, you know, like twice as hard, and yet
I feel like 3 times as hard, because you're not only a woman, but you're a woman of color too.
You know, and, you know, it's not like, even when I do get placed into women-centered things, you know, I'm still the only Asian woman, or I'm still the only, you know, woman in hip-hop, or, you know, and that's like, I just get tiered into so many things.
The first this and the first that, right?
Yeah. Was that the case at Complex Con? Was that the same thing? Because you performed there, right?
I did. I had Complex Con weekend was the hardest thing I've done thus far. After this summer was an intense summer, but it was amazing. So Complex Con, I DJ'd, I sang and danced, and then I also had a booth with my merch for the first time, and I also hand dyed my tees and my merch. So yeah, it was so Complex Con was 2 days.
Yeah.
Then that Friday I had a collab sneaker with Converse come out, so we had a party Friday night.
Yeah, that's a big deal though, because like we were saying, now you're female, but female, a person of color, right? And you're also the only one in a male-dominated industry for music, hip hop. And I guess, at what point in this career were you like, oh shit, what I'm doing is actually changing lives? Like, people are actually feeling inspired by my work. At what point did you feel that, and then kind of took that in and like, I gotta do more? I don't know if it's fully hit me yet.
I think I'm always just it's not enough. Work harder, do more. It's not until it's like right, like until it's equal. I don't think I'm ever going to feel like I've, you know, really done my part. I just, you know, but recently a girl posted a video of her dancing to I Decided, and who is Filipina. And shout out to, honestly, I've never had Filipino support like I have now. I think it's, even when I was a DJ, it wasn't that, you know, and I remember being like, I'm waving this flag and like, I'm doing what I can, like, you know, what is it? And, you know, I've realized that with my music, with my own personal music, it's been a way for people to get closer to me and understand me, and then have a better connection with me, because, like, you know, not Filipino people either work third shift, you know, work weekends, they can't come to the club, they can't hear me play live, they can't, be on Instagram all the time and understand what I'm doing, or we're not in the same realm. But for them to be able to listen to my music wherever they are, wherever they go, that's been such like a. It's only been like a few months since I've dropped the project, and I've just had so much love and response, and specifically from the Filipino community.
But when you started out, I take it that wasn't the case, right?
Not at all.
I have a theory for that, actually. Just because I've been in this industry where I've gotten to know a lot of Filipino artists. Apple Diap from Black Eyed Peas, got to know his manager very well, and I've gotten to interview and meet a lot of these Filipino artists. But it's also because sometimes thinking about the Filipinos, we're kind of bandwagoners, right? I'll give you an example, right? So Apple Diap, for example, who are like the most known Filipinos right now that you know of, aside from Apple Diap?
Like full?
Joe Coy, right?
Joe Coy.
Bruno Mars, right? He's half Filipino. Arnel Pineda, the lead singer of Journey. All of them now they're catering to a Filipino audience, but the thing about, and I think this is one of the negative things too about our community, aside from crab mentality, is that sometimes we don't support their own until they become
Everybody else
mainstream.
does? Yeah.
Until everybody else does, right?
Wow, that's so true.
So
That's
if
wild.
Bruno Mars, Apple Diap, Arnold Pineda, like if they all started in the Philippines and did stuff there, they would have not made a name for themselves, right?
Wow.
Because even if they're hustling and grinding, I don't know why. Maybe it goes back again to like that whole colonial mentality where, if white people like it and they're being praised by the mainstream,
then we'll like
we'll like it. Then we'll be like, oh yeah, they're Filipino. We're proud of them.
Yeah.
But when they're starting out, they don't give a damn. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes like, can I curse?
Yeah.
And like some of my friends who are these like now mainstream, they're like, motherfucker, where the hell were you when I started out?
Yeah.
Right? Like now that I'm bigger, now that everybody else is, when I'm asking for your support in the beginning, you're like, no, I'm not really gonna care about you. I'm not gonna give you my time of day. But then you become, now that you're picked up on CNN, or you're picked up on you're actually like, people outside of the Filipino community are praising you for your talent and your creativity. That's all of a sudden when I call it like the Filipino floodgates are like, oh my god, he's Filipino, they're Filipino, we're proud of them, right? But that's the issue in our community as well. There's a lot of issues in our community, but those another issue is that we need to start supporting our local artists, or like our artists from the very beginning, right? But again, the country is itself too. They always feel like they need to have that international seal of approval before they actually support them. That's why even in the Philippines there's no, and even it's not just artists, right? It goes to the same for athletes.
Yeah.
That's why within the Philippines you don't see a lot of funding geared towards that, right? And that, I think that's something that needs to change.
I do feel like it's that kind of like mentality though, right? Where it's like they're not with you until you actually make it.
Yeah.
It's across the board though, like for pretty much all Asians for the most part. Just because of like the fact that a lot of the, like our parents, right, their generation when they came over here, they're struggling, right? They're fighting and everything like that to make a life for us, for the most part. And they want you to have like a safe, quote unquote safe and secure job.
Of course.
And then when they see you going after like these dreams and aspirations, they're like, why are you doing something so stupid and so crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're not gonna be guaranteeing yourself any source of income.
You want to be a singer, a dancer? Yeah. Be a nurse first, right? Go to nursing school, right? I wanted to do theater, right? My mom was a theater teacher, but my parents were like, no, go to nursing school, get a nursing degree.
Yeah.
They're like, why are you doing this community work? Asian American community work? No, get a nursing degree.
Yeah. Exactly.
But
that's all they know. Like
that's all they know, and I don't blame them because they want the best for you, right? They don't want to see you struggle. That's why they want that. But at the same time, we need to. I feel like the more we have Asian American representation, the more they see like, oh shit, you can actually become an Asian American, artist. You can actually become an Asian American, actor, DJ, music producer, performer, dancer.
I agree.
It's so possible, but it's
maybe that's why, right? Like the support doesn't happen until everybody else does, because they just don't know how, right? They're just so small-minded that to think outside of that. Right, my dad still doesn't know what I do. Like,
really.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how is that like with your parents? Like,
well, my mom has always been supportive. She's always been,
Right.
Yeah.
what she had to unconventionally find a way for herself, and she believed in her dream and her talent and her career. So she was very, very supportive of us. My dad, on the other hand, I went to school. I have a BA in fashion merchandising.
Okay.
And graduated by 20. I was 20 with a BA, and I was a child,
That's wild.
But after that, my dad, literally 2 weeks after, my dad was like, "So you're gonna go to nursing school now?" And I was like, "What? No, I just fucking went to school for 20 years straight. Hell no." But me and my dad have had a better relationship now, because he just wanted the best for me, and I understand, our parents struggled, and they just didn't want us to struggle, and for us to have a better life, and I get it, and I understand, I'm not a parent yet, so I had to put myself in my dad's shoes, and he told me, he's like, I don't understand. He's like, but I see that you're doing well and that you're happy, and that's all I could ever want as a dad. So we've had these beneficial conversations to where I can understand where he's coming from, and where he doesn't understand what I do, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't understand that I'm happy and that I'm well and that I'm secure, and I have something to show for what I'm doing. Right. So, that just makes him proud. But that's why I think maybe it's like that, because they just don't know. They don't know. So unless I'm able to give them something tangible that they can understand, that's when the support comes. If you see me, which will happen, I'm going to be on TV. I'm going to be in mainstream, on the radio. Well, I'm on local radio, but on national radio. I want to break another cycle where it's Asian people can be stars. We don't have to, Korean people made their own music because they knew that was the smartest way to do it. K-pop is genius to me. You know what I mean?
know, right?
It's mind-boggling.
But if you look back into it, it's because also the Korean government invested into it, right?
Right.
The government put millions of dollars into investing into that, right? Whereas you don't really see that in other. But you look how much of a success it is.
Right.
Just to sidetrack, I just saw recently that there is even a K-pop all Filipino boy band.
There is?
Yeah, it was on Next
Korea?
Chart. Yeah, so
Oh,
they
I heard
went to
about that.
they
Yeah.
these Korea, because that's the K-pop is a business for
Yes.
the Korean,
Absolutely.
for the
Yeah.
country, right? So there's a large Korean community in the Philippines now, and also the Philippines consumes a lot of K-pop. So
That's
what they
true.
did was they did a whole search and got these Filipinos to come to Korea to train to become K-pop stars. And now sent them back to the Philippines, and so now they're an all Filipino K-pop group
That's
Awesome. In the Philippines.
in the Philippines.
that's phenomenal.
That's
Right?
amazing.
They're managed by
Yeah.
Korean company agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Asian
That's
people
crazy.
link up.
Yeah.
I
Right?
love it.
See, that's continuing on with that, right? That's another big shift, right? Now you have these two completely opposite entities, right? Where they have two different ideals, and now they're kind of connecting and trying to bridge these communities together, right? From the Philippines to Korea, and then vice versa, right? But at the same time, it's pretty wild, right? That they Korea itself, right, invested in this group, right, and just had them come over to Korea and then train and have them go back.
If you think about it, though, it's strategic. It's a
Yeah,
money
it is,
maker,
it
right?
is.
So Marie, before you briefly went over how your parents felt about your career, but that was a perfect segue to the questions that the audiences sent in.
Okay.
So one of the questions, shout out to Dana, she asked, growing up as a Filipino American woman, did your parents guide you into become a nurse or somewhere along the medical field, right? If so, now that you're on your way to a successful career path, has this changed your parents' views at all?
Yeah. I've never. I'm like scared of seeing blood. Like, I think. And both of my parents are not in the medical field. My dad's a computer engineer who wanted to be an architect. So my dad was, very creative. Growing up, he always drew. I think I get a lot of my this kind of artistic abilities from my dad, and and then obviously the musical side from my mom. So no, they never pushed the medical field upon me. My dad only when I was older in my college years, just because that was the safest thing to do, of course. All of his sisters, all of my aunts are nurses, all of my best friends are nurses, I'm Filipino, or nurses,
I feel like there's each of us subsects of Asian communities, we have a special.
Oh yeah, you have Vietnamese with their nail salons, Koreans with their laundromats, Filipinos, the nurses,
Chinese with their restaurants.
Yeah, restaurants.
It's wild.
So that's why it was that was the safest choice. And I mean, my mom was at my show, and there was a part of the show where I brought her on stage and kind of just had to explain a little bit of why it was important for me to carry on this legacy, because my mom is one of 13 children, is the only one who made it to the US by doing what she loved.
Wow.
She was a single mother raising 3 children, and she did it very well. You know what I mean? To this day, my mom is still singing. My mom still works full time, and she's 68, and that's amazing to me. Sometimes I'm just I'm so used to my mom that I'm just lady, will you sit down? You know what I mean? But that's also where I get it from. So I think when I brought her on stage, I made sure I did all my Philippine X, make some noise, and it was loud. My boyfriend told me, he was it was you didn't see how many. I'm like, no, I didn't walk through the crowd. I'm like, it's hard to see people from the stage, and he's like, it was 60% Asian in there, and I was like, wow.
That's wild.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
I never would have thought so. And then when I had my mom still on stage, I was like, if your parents were not born in America, make some noise. And it just was even 3 times louder. And I think where I know that my parents are proud of me, that makes me extremely happy. And I think also just very, it's the reassurance that I needed, because I fought it for so long. My parents and my family and my best friends have seen me struggle. I've been a struggling, the starving artist, and so the fact that my family and my parents understand and see me doing well and trust that this is what I'm supposed to do makes me believe it even more.
I have a question about that, that whole struggle, because sometimes that's something that, as artists you have to embrace, but where was that tipping point where you were able to, because, so many people just struggle, but now you've been able to kind of go to that tipping point where you've actually gotten known, you're getting you're getting sponsorships from you're doing collab with Converse. I heard about you actually through Instagram when there was a tequila Herradura was doing a sponsored post, and it popped up and I was looking at it, and then all of a sudden I was like, yo, that girl's Filipino. She's gotta be Filipino. This is the first time I've seen a Filipino on a tequila sponsored post. Who is this person? Yeah. Then I Googled you, and then I'm like, holy shit, she is Filipino. Yeah. Then I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. Right? But how does, what was that journey like for you, when did you know that you're oh my God, I actually am able to make this a career?
I mean, honestly, the success of it all, or like, you know, what people are seeing is all very recent. You know, I've been doing music for the last 10 years. And so, you know, I've lived in New York, I've also lived in LA, and I've found myself back home. And, you know, I've done everything. I've done everything to try and make money, and, well, not everything, hold on. But I've worked over 30 jobs, and you know what I mean? Like, I've found my way along the way, and I think that's also part of it, right? The journey is what the most important part is. And so, you know, the thing that everyone is seeing now, it's like, I'm so grateful. Like, every post I have is usually a thank you and full of gratitude. And just because it's like, yeah, like 2 years ago, I just had bags, and I was on the train and on the bus and sleeping on my friends' couches and sleeping on floors, and, you know, but never, I mean, so many times doubtful of like it actually happening, you know, but just never not giving up on what this looked like. I saw this, you know, I envisioned what this would be for myself and what I wanted for myself. And, you know, like, I knew that God didn't give me talents to just waste, you know, for me to go to school again and try and get a job that would pay me decently so I could live a decent life. Like, I don't want decent, I want the best for myself and for everyone around me, you know. So it took a while.
Yeah. Was there one point, was there one point in life or one event or that was kind of like more of the tipping point that actually helped? Because you said it's only picked up within the past 2 years. Like, you know, what was like that big break for you?
The big break to make me go harder, or the big break that it worked?
Either. Or both.
Or both.
When I said I slept on the floor, there was like 2 years ago where I came back home and I found myself sleeping on a hardwood floor and was like, who would let me? Like, who loves me? How am I under a roof around people that say that they're my friends, you know? Like, I'm on the floor. Like, you know, I'm like, no. Like, I'm a woman. I'm grown. How, you know? And I think it was that for me to be like, I can't do this. I can't have this be it for me, you know? And I've been on tour, and, you know, like, where I had like 98 cents in my bank account and had could only buy an apple and a water at the gas station for like a 48-hour span. And, you know, I've been humbled many times in my life and in my career, but I think it's because I wouldn't have appreciated it how I am now. And so I think everything happens the way it's supposed to, you know. So I think I went through those things. Like, there's been many like hardship times, but really the time that, so my last post was 2 pictures from my show, and my dream as a little girl was to always be on stage and have the crowd singing my lyrics with me and back to me, and it just happened. So my first headlining show at Shuba's, the crowd like knew my lyrics. So it's like, you know, you're on stage, so it's like, you know, disconnect because, you know, acoustic, like the sounds, like. Yeah. But when I was reposting everybody's stories that, you know, they were singing with me, men, women, from the stage I could see, you know, people that knew word for word, and honestly that's all I've ever dreamt of, you know. Like, so now that I've achieved the only dream that I've ever had as a little girl, I'm like now just like kind of, that hasn't settled yet. I mean, it's been like maybe a week and a half, you know, a little under 2 weeks since that's happened, and I just, you know, for me it's really hard for me to be like, you know what I mean? I'm just like, okay, we've done that. Next, you know, and so
gotta keep the next step. How do we take it to the next level?
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I got to go to Jamaica last week, and so like, you know, there was a lot of reflecting, and just soaking in. And so like, you know, understanding that I've come to the point in my career where it's where my dream and my career have matched, you know, it's like just making new dreams.
Yeah.
You mentioned your lyrics, right? And we did have a question from somebody about her lyrics.
Yes, so shout out to Joe. He said, what inspired the track I Decided? Love the EP Prelude, by the way.
Thanks, Joe. So I Decided is a self-love anthem. I didn't, you know what's crazy? I didn't, for me when I write music, it's more like I just say how I feel to the beat. With I call him my little brother Matt, who's also Filipino. So I Decided is also produced by him and engineered by him. So shout out to Filipino musical artists.
There you go.
So what inspired I Decided was my sobriety. So I am sober as of January 1st, 2019. So it's coming up on 9 months, almost 9 months of being sober.
Nice.
So it was more of like, it was rough. It was rough. The first couple months were really hard. Not just like because I didn't have alcohol, but because it was like, you know, it was like changing what I was used to. You know, I'm a DJ. I work in the nightlife. It's so easy. It's free. It's all the time. It's how I get paid sometimes or whatever. So, you know, and also just like being around people that drink and like trying to not feel like a lame or that I'm, you know. So I decided, it really just came like the I Think I Decided was just on repeat. That part was on repeat, and then I went to the studio the next day. I was at home when I heard that, and the next day I went to the studio and just kind of like was like, no, like I'm drawing the line in the sand of what I want, and I know what I have to do to get there, and if it's cutting this part out, then I'm okay with that, whatever it's going to take. So I think that's more or less what I decided to started to be. I didn't know it was going to end up being that, but it was like, yeah, like, you know, it didn't, I think I decided you're not for me no more. The love that I provided wasn't meant to be yours. So however anyone wanted to interpret that, you know, whether it was like a bad relationship, anything that's toxic from your life, you know, it's like you can decide what doesn't serve you anymore, or, you know, what isn't like supposed to be for you, because you're the only one who can do that, right? So yeah, that's what inspired I Decided. Also what I was trying, I didn't get a chance to say it earlier, but the girl who last gave me a video, I think her name is Jessie, sorry if I messed that up, but she just posted a few days ago, and she in the caption put, fun fact, the first time I heard the song I cried because I was having a really hard day and harboring a lot of feelings at work, but it allowed me to, something like, you know, it just made her feel like she can like get her power back. And, you know, she was like, growth, #growth.
Dang. Shout out to her.
Yeah, and it was, and it like,
keep growing.
Yeah, and I commented, I was like, man, sis, like, I am here to keep growing and glowing with you, you know, and like that's honestly like what makes me proud of what I do and like want to keep doing it, because it's like that's why I'm like, if I can give you music, that's why I'm like, I think, you know, Filipinos just, they want to hear music, like they love karaoke, they love being able to sing.
We're kings at karaoke.
Yeah, like to
we
sing
will
and
kill
dance.
over karaoke. That's how much we love it.
So yeah, I think it's that, being able to connect with them in that way and have them feel the same. It's been very powerful.
Okay, and then I think you know her, Nookie.
Yeah.
She asks, what motivates you to keep going, and what is your life goal?
So Nookie is like a big sis to me, you guys. I've known her.
Nookie from Hi Bayo. Nookie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shout out to
Shout out to Nookie and shout out to Hi Bayo.
Yeah.
She's known me almost 75% of my life. Her little brother is a very close friend as well. So say one more time. It just made me happy to hear her name. Say it.
Nucky.
No, the question.
I was like, what? I guess I'll say it.
That name makes her happy too.
Damn. Okay. What motivates you to keep going, and what is your life goal?
What motivates me to keep going is, honestly, I mean, family, of course, but like specifically the children in my life. Seeing them, it's amazing. My oldest niece is 8 now. Oh my God.
Wow.
She will be 8.
Time flies.
At the end of October. And yesterday, my best friends just asked me to be a ninang.
Oh.
Which is godmother.
Which is
Yep.
godmother.
Godmother?
So
Okay.
they
I
gave
caught
me,
that one.
yeah, gave me the honor of being a godmother again. And, you know, honestly, it's like, the fact that the people in my life, you know, trust me enough to, like, look after their children, God forbid anything happens to them. It's just, like, an honor. And, you know, it makes me want to do so much more for them. Like, when I'm not King Marie, I mean, I'm King Marie every day, but when I'm around my family, I'm just Christine, you know, and that's what makes me fulfilled, of being able to just be tita or ninang, and, you know, just being able to, like, roll around and, you know, play whatever. And so that's really what my motivating factor is, you know, being able to, you know, see what my mom is capable of still, you know, into her 70s now. Is near 70s is like, I'm not even halfway there, you know what I mean? Like, and because, like, how these kids look at me, but it's like, that's just so that's my side of the family. But then, like, my boyfriend's nieces and nephews are a little bit older, so they are like my fans. Like, they are my biggest fans. They sing my lyrics. They play the song. They play I Decided all the time.
Wow.
And it's amazing. You know, it's amazing to me that I have these little people in my life that support me so much, you know, whether I'm King Marie, a singer, or just, you know, a regular aunt. Like, they just look up to me, and that really just makes me continue to do what I do.
We actually didn't get to that portion.
Yeah.
Actually, we've always wanted to know how'd you come up with the name?
My sister, actually, by the way, Selena is asking you that question.
Oh, okay.
She listens to your music. I was like, what? You know her?
Aw. Hey girl, thanks for listening.
Yeah. Why the name King Marie?
Yeah, so King Marie came about, so Christine Marie is my full first name, very Filipino to have.
Christine is such a Filipino name.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they give names like Tintin as like a nickname.
So that's my nickname.
Tintin? Or Christine?
Tintin.
Tintin.
Yeah.
Ah! I knew it.
Yeah.
See, it's so common.
I mean, no, you can't.
Nailed it.
There's no way you can be Filipino and not have Tintin.
Yeah.
But, so, like, growing up, so, like, Nuki and Alan know me as Tin Rock, Tin, like, Tin by itself. My closest friends call me Tin. Very Filipino.
Yeah.
Just Filipino thing. But then I spelled it with a Y instead of an I because I had to be different.
Yeah.
So, you know. King Marie came about, so Christine Marie, full first name, when I moved to New York. So, funny stories, I've always sang first, put out an EP first, always wanted to be a singer. In, like, around the time I graduated college, I just, like, was over it. I was just bartending, I was working at Nike, I was, you know, just kind of, like, everything was just at a standstill here, and I wanted more. I moved to New York City, what everyone does when, you know, they want to have their dreams come true. And so shortly after, I realized that it was really expensive and had to, you know, work real jobs and, you know, had to kind of put the music on hold because I didn't have free studio time, I didn't have etc. So I picked up DJing because I knew I was going to get for sure money if I kept at that. You know, if I just played X amount, I would get X amount. It was, you know, guaranteed. So when I started DJing is when I named myself King Marie. And I think I've learned that later on, it was subconscious that I was, you know, naming myself King instead of Queen. I didn't know what it was going to do for me. I just was like, well, why not? You know, like, why can't I be a king? I'm a queen already. Like, which is king is the lyrics in King. You know, it's like, I already know I'm a queen. Like, I'm gonna show you why they call me king. You know what I mean? Like, so that was definitely subconscious of, you know, me. But I always want to break stereotypes. I always want to, you know, push the thought process of why not and who said, like, you, like, because why, you
and
know,
who are you, right?
Exactly. So that's how I chose King Marie. But, you know, to also expand on, like, you know, I'm a tomboy, but I identify as straight, you know, but I don't need to tell you that. You know, like, I don't need to prove to you anything, but me being who I am is proof enough of why you shouldn't have to question me. You know, I got all the way up until now, you know, not often, but, you know, why not Queen Marie? Or, you know, I had a comment on my profile from someone in Jamaica. I didn't even post while I was in Jamaica, but I guess they found me somehow and was like, oh, were you a transvestite? Like, did you change your name, you know, when you got the, yeah. So, but then I was like, it's another country. Like, I'm sure there's no woman calling themselves king here,
right,
you know?
Right.
So, you know, I just try and keep my mind open in regards to, you know, what
instead of being too reactive right away, which is good.
I mean, at this point, you know, like, there's like I said, like, you know, I've kind of just like, even just like grazed the outside of what I've had to go through, you know, as a struggling artist, but there's really nothing that can break me at this point, you know, like, I'm fully aware of who I am and what I stand for, so that's all that really matters.
To the listeners who don't know, Christine has a lot of tattoos, right? And one of the questions, shout out to Bea, she says her sister, I forget her name, made some of your earrings.
Oh yeah, Gretchen.
Yes.
She introduced me at introduced herself to me at my show.
Yes.
And she was like, my sister's Gretchen, Brown Girls, and I was like, oh my god, you look just like her. And gave her a big hug.
That's awesome.
Shout out to Gretchen.
Hey girl.
So she said, which tattoos of yours do you consider the most significant and why?
Definitely my batok on my chest. Can't see it right now, but this was also the most painful and took the longest to heal. We could have a whole segment on my experience getting batok. Like, it's
For those of you who know about the batok, that's like the traditional
yes,
Filipino tattoo where it's like
needle.
hand.
It's
Yeah,
hand.
It's
like hammered.
Yeah, it's like
into
hand,
you.
it's like hand hammered.
A hand hammered tattoo.
And then people also need.
It's very painful.
Yeah.
So more people need to be present to push the skin down and then spread it, while the tattooer is the one who.
Did you get it done in the Philippines?
I got it done here.
It's actually really rare to get those done in the States just because of like.
There's only a limited
codes.
amount of people who can
who do it
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out to Manong Lane and Ate Natalia from Filipino Kitchen, who is also, you know, like they've also been very like into my Filipino community and, like, you know, having answers of questions, of historical questions that I've had. But yes, my batok is very significant. So everyone has different batok, and the person who is tattooing you also has to know where exactly your family is from in the Philippines, what you do for a living,
Like
they need to know your family history.
Yeah.
So batok is the method of tattooing?
Yes.
Yes.
So then what is the picture or artwork that's on?
So he has to meditate on it.
Right.
So by knowing my family history, the designs, please call me. The designs are based on what he envisions for you.
Gotcha. Okay.
So they're all different. So it's a lot to like. That's why I'm like, it's a lot to explain.
Gotcha.
It's also ceremonial. You feed the people that are there to help with the tattoo process. You bring food. You set a plate to serve as an altar to your ancestors that have passed.
Right.
One of my great Lola was present. So I didn't, I knew that we had to like honor our ancestors. I didn't know that my ancestors would pull up and be present and like be watching me get tattooed. And yeah, so I mean, it was really deep. But yes, my chest tattoo is also the most visible. It's usually not hiding. So it's always the most visible. And the bottom, these are alligator teeth. So someone on the opposing side would see that. They would know not to mess with me because I was protected. And if they were to hurt me, then them and their entire family would be like...
Dang.
Damned. Yeah, so
that's crazy.
And also in Filipino culture, women are the ones who are given the tattoos, and men had to earn them by headhunting.
Okay.
Oh.
So that's also part of it. What was the second part of the question?
It was just why.
And also, and then my hands. So my hand tattoos are also the most important.
You mind showing them the?
Yeah. So my knuckles say "Swim Good," which is my favorite Frank Ocean song. And all of my hand tattoos are towards me. They're not, usually people get them so that other people can read them, but I always wanted them to be for me. The E is for Eric, which is my boyfriend and my partner. Pray, to always remind myself to pray. Also, Swim Good. The song, it's also like the only song that you can interpret to be a happy or a sad song. Frank Ocean is also one of my favorite artists just because he has that. I don't know anybody else who could do that. And to, continuously keep going. Pray to always, always a reminder to, I would not be here without prayer. So, that's just an everyday thing. The rose was for my stepfather that passed away. And the dragon is the newest addition, and it'll also wrap around. But yeah, these are my hands. My hands are also.
That's a
that
dog.
That's Marley. That's the office dog. So we have the office dog.
trying to
Marley
get
is
in.
trying to get in right now.
It's okay.
Sorry, Marley.
Sorry, buddy.
he's sad.
You're gonna hear him. On the audio.
Real quick.
Alright.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll
Sorry.
wrap it up real quick. Last question. Shout out to Marco. Describe your growth process and what surprised you the most.
It's a continuous. Sorry, Marley. It's a continuous growth process. Honestly, at this point I'm still growing and surprising myself every day. I think now that I've had time to kind of like rest and recuperate after a very intense summer. I also celebrated a birthday at the end of August, so it was like kind of just like my new life and what I want for myself this year and so forth. It's more just being able to focus internally and to do for self. Like my version of self-care isn't, I mean, it's nice. It's nice to get massages and like, get my nails done.
That's always
So
nice.
It is. It's nice. But self-care is like, for me, is all internal growth. So yeah, I mean, I'm never going to stop growing. I'm never going to stop learning. I want to go to school to learn Photoshop. And I want to learn how to play the drums, and I want to learn how to speak Tagalog. And yeah,
there you go. Keep learning.
Kind of
keep growing. Yep.
There you go.
all within the next year for plans for me.
Awesome. So, before we officially end, what is one thing that you would leave our listeners and the people that are viewing us in this episode?
To spread love, to always lead with love, no matter what you do. To put Asian people onto the world, because we are great people and we are spectacular and amazing, and we deserve it. We do. And be good to one another, man. Be a good person.
That's right.
Just do to others how you would want to be done to you, and honestly, it will get us a lot further than where we are.
I agree.
Awesome. And one more question before we wrap up. like, is where can people find you next? Like, what's up? What do you have upcoming, and where do people follow you and such?
Yeah, all platforms except Twitter is at King Marie. Twitter is at DJ King Marie. To King Marie on Twitter whenever you're ready to give that up. I'm ready. So it can all be neutral. KingMarie.com, KingMarie.com/merch if you want to cop some Kingdom tees. I throw a party in the city called Kingdom. That's bi-monthly. As of right now, if you're in New York, I try and do every other month also in New York City. There's shows popping up. There's Philippine X is next month. There's always something going on in the world of King Marie. I'm always doing like guest spots on different nights. I'm opening for J-Rock on Friday for all my hip hop heads.
There you go.
There's a lot going on, so best way to do it is to follow me at King Marie. I post everything that I'm doing. Yeah.
For sure.
Awesome.
And then Lockie, Chicago Asian Network, any other plugs?
Yes. Well, this podcast and video would not be possible without Urban Convene. Chicago Asian Network is housed here in Urban Convene, and it is the only and first community co-working space in the Westridge area. So we really appreciate Susan from Urban Convene for having us here. Check them out. They rent their space out to the community at a significantly discounted rate because it is for the community. It's a full service event space, but they also have office spaces here too. We also wanted to thank the people who supported Chicago Asian Network. We definitely wanted to thank our boy Johnny for running the camera. My guy from the Shy.
Let's go.
Shy. He runs some of our social media for Chicago Asian Network.
Awesome.
Also, if you guys want to know more interesting stories or really get connected with the Chicago Asian American community, just check us out. On Instagram, it's Shy Asian Network, CHI Asian Network, or our website, chicagoasiannetwork.com. And you'll find all the information there. And one more plug is that the Steppenwolf Theater is doing a show on called The Great Leap about basketball and the Tiananmen Square massacre.
Wow.
And their lead actor is Filipino American.
Let's go.
So definitely check them out, Steppenwolf Theater. And thank you again, Eating Cast, for doing this collab. And I hope we get to do more collabs with other awesome Asian Americans.
Absolutely.
Last plug. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah,
Please,
go ahead.
It's still recent, so I forget to do this. Listen to The Prelude, out now on all streaming networks, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, all of the above.
We're going to put the link in the podcast.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
It'll
And
be
the
there.
video.
Look out for that.
Amazing.
Last but not least, too, for the Eating Cast, if you haven't already, hit us up on Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts at the Eating Cast, the THE Eating EATING Cast. And thank you for dining with us.
Thank
you
you.
for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming, everyone.
Thank you guys so much for doing this and for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having us.
All right.
Yeah.
Peace.
Take care,
Out.
and we'll see you at the next one.